12:01, and we're going to start this meeting today of Budget and Oversight for Metro Arts. Let me thank the commissioners who are present for being here. Commissioner Nefflin will not be here. He had a requirement with one of his clients, so he is not here, but we have enough to conduct business, so we're going to move forward. I think I need to have a statement that's read with respect to pursuant to the provisions of 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws. Please take notice that decisions of the Arts Commission may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davison County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the Commission. Any person or other entity considering appeals should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. We hope that is helpful, and I'm sure that if there are questions, you can consult an attorney on that. So let me just welcome everyone here. And present today are Commissioners West, Commissioner Lefowich, and Commissioner Jester, in addition to myself, Beverly Watts. We're going to go straight to public comment. Is there any public comment, Vivian?
There are no public comments today.
No public comments, which puts us into the issue of some reports that we are going to receive. But what I'd like to do first, well, let me just do this. We have persons from finance and legal. If you're like me, you've gotten a few issues around payments, some questions around budget, and other issues. So I've asked finance to come and talk with us about budget, and legal to provide updates on Thrive and any other issues they need to discuss with us as we try to move out of this particular session with at least a proposed timeline of what we need to look at over the next 30 to 60 days so that we can start putting some things in place near the beginning of the fiscal year, or at least identifying issues at the beginning of the fiscal year that we need to work on for budget and oversight moving forward. So I see Amanda here, and she's going to talk with us about budget and other issues.
That's right. So thank you for having me. I'm Amanda Deaton-Moyer. I'm with the Finance Department. So I had touched base with Chair Watts earlier today, and wanted to give you an update on a few items, one of which is the FY25 budget, and the others are ongoing payments to artists. So the first one is the 2025 budget. So last Wednesday, Mayor O'Connell gave his budget address, and it was a culmination of a lot of hard work from our department, the budget office, which is part of our department, and countless others who had submitted lots of things. If you don't ask, you don't get. So that's what departments do. And but this budget revenues are flat, or relatively flat, based on what the state is seeing and also what we're seeing in our receipts as well. And so Director Crumbo gave that message. And what the budget looks like this year is, as our budget officer declares it, a lights-on budget. And so the arts budget reflects a lights-on budget. While there was significant requests made from the department, most of those were not granted. Rather, it is a lights-on budget, so it's status quo. So I actually think that that's a good thing. Status quo is you're not going down, and so no department is, but it's doing the best we can to meet our contractual engagements as well as meet our needs of our employees. So that being said, that is what the budget in total looks like. Now, what you're immediately going to say is, what about that ordinance? I'm sure you all have seen, or if you haven't, I'm here to tell you, in the budget ordinance, funding for the two lines in your line budget, but it's the operating grants and ultimately the line that Thrive awards have come out of. Those have been moved to an administrative account, and I brought it here to read because I didn't want to mess it up. It's still there, and it's still part of the fiscal year 25 budget. Let me make that clear. But what it says is the appropriation of these funds shall be contingent upon both the Metro Arts Commission providing an annual report to the Metro Council detailing the grant recipients' monies dispersed and the purposes for which the monies were dispersed, as required by Tennessee Code annotated 7-3-314, parentheses D, and 2, the approval by the Metro Council of the criteria of the Metro Arts Commission for the award of any funds as required. And that's been a conversation ongoing that this group has had, so I don't think that is, I'm not going to say it's not a surprise, but that is a culmination of those conversations. So that is the budget update. Staff has been great to work with on getting that together and making sure we understand those and understand what's coming. And then the other update I wanted to provide was that Thrive grant dollars or Thrive Award dollars are going out. They have been going out. About 60% of those dollars have been awarded or sent out. I think something like just over 60%. It looks like as of this morning that is 57 people or organizations. Now there are numerous people who have either written into Tessa and said, I've got a question, or let me help this out. And Tessa's been working valiantly to individually with those artists to work those issues out. Sometimes it's addresses. Sometimes we have some artists that have, been in our system for a lot of different reasons. And so some of those are things that we're working out. And I feel like the process is moving. As for operating grants, those are a little more complicated from a document standpoint, but those the letters and emails went out last week. They were sent, and they are asked to return a grant spending plan as well as a letter that's similar to what was sent to Thrive Award awardees. And once those are returned, that will culminate in a contract that also has to be signed before dollars can be released, because those grants all had contracts associated with them. And these are additional grants. So that is all I have for you today. Hopefully that answers some questions before you ask them. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Tessa, you want to sort of finish out some details you may have so that we can see where we at least get those details as well?
Yes, ma'am. So I do concur with Amanda's assessment of the amount of Thrive awards that have been paid and processed. I will say there were a few more scanned in yesterday afternoon / this morning, so the letters received might be a few more than 62 at this point. I will note, according to our database, there are approximately 7 to 8 letters that have been returned to Metro. These letters have been edited or revised in some way by the awardees, essentially disagreeing with the language that Metro used in our letter. And so we are reviewing those edits and revisions on these letters and hoping to collaborate with MHRC going forward to come to resolution on the acceptable language, both to Metro and the Thrive awardees. And so that is a bit of an iterative process that we're going through. I have had discussions on a daily basis via email and phone with Thrive awardees and now Op Grant organization awardees as far as concerns that they have. I have been collaborating with Amanda and Ms. Sydney Davis, the grants manager, on scope of projects, reporting timelines, and so we recognize that this this process has challenges, and those need to be worked through very much on an individual basis, whether it's an organization or a Thrive awardee. And we are doing our best to work through those. Keeping in mind, we have 70 plus Thrive awardees and 100 plus OP grant awardees. And so if we take those on an individual one-by-one basis, it is a process, right? A collaborative process. And so the OP grants, as Amanda stated, it is a contractual process, which we will be routing those contracts through DocuSign once the organizations have returned their grant spend plan. The grant spend plan will then become an attachment to the contract, and the full contract will be routed through DocuSign for the signature process. Once the contract is received and fully executed, those contracts will then be processed for payment. So it models the process that we went through for Thrive, but it is a grants contract rather than a procurement as Thrive is. And I am more than willing to answer any questions that the commissioners may have.
Are there any questions?
Is part of the, when you were talking about collaborating with MHRC and thinking about that, is that part of conciliation or is that a separate process?
Honestly, I can't speak to that. I believe the hope is as part of conciliation that we realize that the language in the letters might not be acceptable to some Thrive awardees who are part of the MHRC complaint, and which is why we're trying to be mindful of MHRC's role in this. But again, that it's all working, right? It's day by day, hour by hour, email by email.
I think this probably is a question for Amanda, on budget. Last year, the extra $2 million not included. So we're talking, what, $3.3 million on, if memory serves.
And that $2 million last year was part of a surplus that was declared. It was declared, this is a possible surplus that we'll have, and that is something that the council did as part of the budget process, and it wasn't available until February 7th this last year after the audit was approved. So, that is a process that's part of the council's in the council's world.
Thank you, and Tessa, thank you for all your work.
I had one follow-up about the annual, I'm sorry to make you walking around. When you talked about the annual report to council, is that it's annual reporting, or it is an annual report like Metro Arts annual report?
I have not seen an annual report from Metro Arts, and I don't have a lot of visibility to that.
Okay, that's helpful, thanks.
Any other questions on this issue?
On annual report, I haven't seen one in 2 years, but prior to that, we did have one every year.
So what year would that have been, Commissioner West? Was that
2021?
2021?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Because if so, I think we probably need to see that, at least to understand what was being done.
Was it bound for the whole thing?
And if you got some, why don't you share it with us? Is it automated?
I think I've had a hard copy, yeah.
Okay. Why don't you see if we can't get one? Because that should be something that guides us as well as we continue the work we're doing. So. All right, we're going to move on from the discussion on legal and finance updates and the FY25 budget, unless there's questions. This is one more call for questions or issues.
One more question.
Yes.
The deadline for the budget is May 8th, so has everything been submitted on behalf of the Arts Commission for the budget?
And I followed up this morning, but I haven't heard back from Chris. I'll follow up again to see where things are and make sure that that has been done, because that was something we talked about at our last commission meeting. So, okay, thank you. This gets us into the kind of where are we and what do we know? Not a lot. We've been around since, what, February? We have a lot of information that we're trying to synthesize through, in addition to all of the other additional issues that sort of float around us at meetings, whether it's HR, whether it's complaints, whether it's issues of payment or not payment. Those continue to do, and I think they will continue to be around us as we move forward, whether it's fiscal year 24 or fiscal year 25 in terms of budget issues. But the issue is trying to discern what we have, and Commissioner Lefwitz has put together a letter. And I want her just to share that in terms of what she's done, and thank her for that, because she is our historian. Thank you so very much about what you know and what are the kinds of things we think we need to look at, because I think that should be instructive as to where we go from here.
Do you want me to just talk about my letter?
Yes, please.
So I sent a letter this morning to Chair Sepulveda, because there's tomorrow a special, it's called Rules, Confirmation, and Public Elections Committee meeting. And Metro Arts is really the only thing on the agenda in terms of thinking about, I know they've been having a very helpful ongoing conversation about supporting boards and commissions, looking at the way boards are constructed and trained and supported. So I was trying to share some thoughts from my notes in terms of what might seem helpful. I want to emphasize these are my thoughts. I have not talked to any other commissioners about these, and they may disagree. I just wanted to put something in writing that helps me with my thoughts in advance of the meeting tomorrow. So just different things I addressed, just talking about some of the challenges that we faced as a commission, being that there were 6 new commissioners in December and January, so a lot of turnover coming into kind of very complicated legal situations. And I was trying to think what could have made this easier. And I had done a lot of research because, as you mentioned, I was a history major, Professor Watt, Chair Watt. So I had done a lot of, I'd kind of curated my own repository of information, timelines, bylaws, minutes, recordings, press clippings, annual reports, historical documents. But there is a lack of institutional history and knowledge both in the commission and among the staff. And so that has been challenging. So I just tried to look through some of the things, thinking about, for example, application process, a process that might, right now the application for each commission is standardized, but for us, for the Arts Commission, it might help to ask some specific questions about the landscape that we're in. Also thinking about different modes of expression, so thinking about video responses instead of written responses, more narrative detail on candidates' histories and roles with adjacent communities. We do a conflict of interest form, but more information for council I think would be helpful. Role-specific criteria. So many boards and commissions, we do not do this, but they have desired roles and capacities. So we want one person who knows this. And so do we want to think about doing that? Thinking about equity and support, obviously, which is a challenge. This has been, I think for all of us, a tremendous time commitment. And I acknowledge my own privilege in being able to spend the time to do it, but thinking about barriers to participation and individual flourishing in the context of commission service. providing helpful context and historical background, so standards to preserve the institutional history of the commission, especially during turnover, requirements for maintenance of information repositories, compliance and record keeping, which, was an issue in terms of thinking about recordings, especially in the MHRC report. And so I think we're in a good space there, but continuing to do that. Role clarification. So specifically thinking about the director-commissioner relationship, that clear guidance is needed for commissioners regarding their supervisory role over the director, and thinking about suggestions for effective performance reviews, the delineation of duties between the commission and Metro HR, and supervision and communication of agency mission. So just thinking about improving collaboration and providing support for the director and the staff. Training, both for senior boards and then also specific to different commissions. So consistent training modules around DEI and anti-racist principles, best practices for interacting with the media, council, the public, thinking about a guide to relevant Metro departments and their role in commission and agency operations and deliberations, guidelines for communications, for Open Meetings Act. So things that I would have loved to have had all of that. And then thinking about templates for commission-specific training to ease the burden on our staff. Equity practices, thinking about, I just have to have water. Taking a break. Embedding these equity practices into policy and charter documents to ensure consistency beyond individual personalities, which really would safeguard the mission and the impact. So, we've seen this, I think, that without codified practices, the external efforts are going to remain vulnerable, and we're maybe reliant on conflicting information and decision-making, and the likelihood of turmoil over time increases. Talked about meeting support, so providing dedicated parliamentary support to commission meetings that might be independent, even of Metro Legal, and would strengthen operations and decision-making, increasing accessibility for commissioners and community members, regardless of whether accommodations have been requested. So thinking about providing translation services for non-native speakers, live transcription services. This would support participation across the community and could be beneficial for everyone, I think. Closer ties with council committees, and to help commissioners understand their role in Metro government. Support for reducing turnover, so offering resources for direct support to chairs. It's been hugely challenging, we know, to have and it's such hard work. So what can we do to support chairs and committee chairs? And then thinking about exit interviews for continuity with commissioners who are leaving and chairs. This would promote sustainability. And then the last thing was restorative justice. So thinking about this urgent, to me, need for repair and justice within the racial equity work across all of our communities. So thinking about current and former staff, artists, arts organizations of all sizes, the community at large, and addressing these mechanics of systems change would be improved by prioritizing restorative practices. That's my very long letter, and it's just my ideas.
Well, thank you for putting that together and putting it in writing. I'm sort of one of those people that needs to see things, and I think you've done an excellent job. Whether we all agree on all the issues are not the issue, but somebody has put it together, because I've yet to see it. I've been asking for something like this, so I really appreciate the time and effort you've put into this. Does anyone have any specific kind of concerns or issues? Because let me just sort of summarize what I heard, and I did a quick summary. there is this notion of those of us who are commissioners, who we are, how we're selected, and that kind of thing, which is necessary. I'm the shortcut here, but George has more of the detail. The other is the context and the history. What do we know about what we know? I've looked at the org chart. I've talked to a number of people, and I think there's voids. I had a comment to Commissioner West that I think I've been to a public arts committee meeting, and what I know is that there's process, timelines, et cetera, in place. And I know it's pretty detailed, and everybody can cite to it, and that's the other piece of it. All of the staff members understand it, know it, and know where the public art is, how it was or is being procured, and all of that, and can cite to that, which is what we need to know. The one thing that we don't need to know, are there any gaps? And I think there was gaps mentioned in February when you first introduced some things. I got to go back and sort of put that together with what we now know, because I think that's always the issue for us. Our job is to define where we see issues, concerns, and gaps. And what we're thinking, we need to either receive recommendations from staff and or make recommendations to staff to review it and come back to us. I mean, that really is our charge here as budget and oversight. Whether we're permanent or temporary, we need to do that. So that's something that we need to look at and do. The other piece was role clarification and training and those kind of things, and I'm not sure that all of that's defined. We know that there was some anti-racism training, DEI training, and people want to play games with those. Let me take the privilege of the chair and just say, I'm sorry. If you do it right, the outcomes will look the same. If you do restorative justice and you have issues, they'll look the same ultimately. Anti-racism will take us deeper into some real kind of personal thoughts about things and issues. Sometimes it gets uncomfortable. DEI, if it has address, does not make you as uncomfortable, and I've done both. So I think those are things we just need to sort of look at and balance long term as we move forward. But I think that's really critical for us to do. Director supervision should be defined somewhere by somebody, and we'll figure that out. But that's a question we need to ask and get clarification on. I probably asked a couple of those questions as a result of dealing with HR and talking with individuals that I think we probably need to have more understanding of. I know that was it 2 years ago, there was a search done. So in that, the definition was defined. And some of that comes out of that in terms of supervision, but we don't know what that looks like. So we need to get that to us. Whether we're doing a search or not is not the issue, but from that comes some things about process and historical process. Connections to the council is another issue. What does it look like, and do we have it, and how should we move forward on that? And then the bigger issue is always this community repair and perception of who we are and who we are not. And currently, it's a cloud over our heads. It's like the storms today. It's going to come, and as soon as the front moves out on one issue, there's another front coming. And so we need to look at who we are, what is going on with respect to the perceptions of who we are. And that's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and it's out there, and I think many of us have found that, and sort of look at that. And then ultimately, how do we restore and or repair these issues as it relates to the Metro Arts Commission? Some of it is personal, some of it's broad overview kinds of things about arts commissions and how they function and work throughout the country. The interesting piece was this year, I was looking at some things early in February, and what I looked at was that the Historic Association for African Americans, their theme was restoration through arts. And it's flowing out of a number of special interest groups that are in the arts. So I think we need to sort of look at who we are and what have we done in the past, and what do we need to do. We talk about institutions, we talk about artists, rather than the community of art, or the art community in Nashville, which consists of all of those. So we've got some in our language that sort of divides what we think, and we need to figure out how do we bridge the differences that exist among art groups or artists or individuals in our community. And as commissioners, how do we serve and provide kind of a view of where we're going? So those are the things that I heard that I just sort of synthesized, but yours has more detail. But I think ultimately it really is that. So as we think about things, I made some notes earlier, and I asked the question, and I'll ask it on the record, whether there was a standard operating procedure, and I asked Vivian, and the only reason I say this is that she says no, she's not seen one. So that, I think, is an issue that exists. There is process in place in certain places. They're probably in other places where people don't think they exist. We just need to turn it over and look at it and determine how well it's being utilized, but utilized by the entire staff. I had an SOP for more than 30 years, and every year I revised it because it always was never working well. One thing or the other would always come up. And I had a board of 11 commissioners, by the way, for started with 15, went down to 11. I think when I left, there were 9. I had a board of 9 here in Tennessee. But somewhere that kind of a piece. And every year I had new commissioners, and every year we did an orientation when any new commissioners came on board. It was standard operating procedure. So I think we need to look at that and see what that looks like. Has it been used? What kind of things happen there? So the other is to look at processes that exist in the various areas of Metro Arts. And I looked at public art, community engagement, and operations. Those are the 3 areas we're really looking at here. What currently exists or does not exist. And I'm going to go back out and ask the chair to request that as chairs of committees that you all look at, chairs of committees that are functioning, look at what is currently in place for yours, and then sort of see if we can get staff to synthesize that down so we can look at that. But to also hopefully have some leadership in place to identify and work through a facilitated discussion with staff and with us about where there are gaps and or issues that might need review, whether that's internal to us in Metro or whether there's external sources at any level of government throughout this country that's doing it right, whatever that means, so that we can look at that and adjust. And interestingly enough, Metro Arts has a reputation for being one of those groups, which makes it sort of interesting. So we need to figure out why are we one of those groups, and what does that look like, or what has that looked like in the past? I don't know. Does anyone know? You're the historian. Do you know?
Can you restate the question?
What I said was we need to look at other groups out either in Metro or outside Metro and what's going on that makes them the go-to group, and that Metro Arts, this is me synthesizing, Metro Arts is one of those groups looked at outside of Metro by others. So we need to figure out what that is. And I was just saying, do you have some kind of sense historically on that?
There's a lot of data in the shared drive in terms of thinking about history. For example, the CARE committee, which was the art committee at the time, prepared a very helpful history of Metro Arts, which is in our shared drive. There are a number of reports and articles thinking about looking at, for example, origin of specific programs like Thrive. So those are also in the shared drive. I would also say that we have there are a lot of resources and potential conversation partners for us. We are short on institutional memory. Commissioner West, you're like our senior statesperson. But we have a lot, I think, of relationships, and I've met so many interesting people and have had so many interesting conversations, right, with people in terms of thinking about initiatives and both looking at history and how we might move forward. So do I have a clear answer for that? No. I will also say, though, that there's a lot of there's the potential, too, for partnerships as we think about this work, I think, that could be interesting. That's all I'll say about that. I'm teaching a class in the fall. I could give it to them as a project. So, no, I'm just kidding. That's probably a conflict of interest. But I'm just saying there are people who are interested in this work and thinking about, program evaluation, thinking about looking at history, looking at other, really collecting data systematically on what we've done and what is working, which a lot is. So I think that would be great.
And I think that sort of looks at kind of next steps and timelines. I'm thinking that we need to start looking at something that takes us out maybe about 60 days to 90, to at least look at what we know about what we know and what we don't know that we need to have, and where and how we might be able to get that. I think a couple of things will happen with that is that we're going to have to rely on staff to help us with some of this. I think some of it we can do, but I think it does come back to program committee work as well, because that's where we have developed policy, that's where we've developed process, and that's where we have things happening. As a group, we're just looking over into the venues of others, and that is one of those things that sort of happens with program and oversight, and then sort of looking at who we are. I'm not sure, because I've looked at bylaws. I didn't look at them this morning before I came in, but I think defining how committees function and making sure that their function consistent with what particular areas are doing. So I looked at the org chart, and we have public art, community engagement, and we've got strategic funding and initiative, and community engagement generally. And then we have operations. Operations is all of the stuff that affects administrative day-to-day, including budget. So the question becomes, what does that, again, I'm back to, what does that look like? How does that look? So I think I'm going to ask if I can get some assistance from public arts initiatives, and you're not the CARE chair.
No.
Okay, that's Commissioner Harden. Mm-hmm. Okay, but to ask and sort of push it into those, and I will probably draft something that'll go out, but I'll send it by you all just to make sure, just to ask them to see if they can't do something in their committees to help us do some things so we can. I'm looking to segment this and codify it so that we have it actually rolling out for work to be completed. Yes.
I also think it would be interesting for each committee to look at their, what is that called? The charter for each committee, is that right? In terms of reviewing it, just to see. I had trouble finding some of those. I was trying to collect those for each committee. I don't know if you might have those, Tessa. Do you have them on you right now?
I do not.
Yeah.
Traditionally, Metro Legal has not reviewed the charters for the committees. I will say that the committees should operate under the same provisions as the bylaws. I have had, Metro Legal has a request recently to attend more committee meetings, specifically the CARE committee meeting. I'm willing to do so if that's going to help the processes.
Great, thank you. I do have the CARE charter, but some of the other committees I had difficulty finding, so that might be a good first step for committees to review that.
I've not looked at the bylaws as it relates to that, but every organization I've been involved in, it's always been in the bylaws, and it's been defined as well. Sometimes as a meeting schedule if necessary. So I think that's a great place. The other is, how do you get your work done? For lack of broad terms, how do you get your work done? What is your work, and how do you get it done? And then I think anytime that we have bylaws, they are not stagnant. They are living, breathing documents. So there's always the process of making necessary changes to those, as long as they're consistent with our charter as the Metro Arts Commission. What I'd like to do is have the chairs, and I'll contact Commissioner Harden, but this will go out to all the chairs, is have each committee look at that, look at their process for accomplishing, what programs are under those that you're currently reviewing and dealing with, whatever that looks like. And then, because operations is one of those areas, we're going to have to look at what's in place, and that's kind of, that will be, I see 4 staff members that probably need to, that talk with and meet with chairs, and one of them will be, it's the public arts, strategic funding and initiatives, community engagement, and we hear from them regularly, and then finance and operations. And that's 4 staff people, with or without an interim director, that should be able to give us some general information about what they know. And if they don't know it, they need to tell us what they don't know and what they need. That's the other piece of this, I think, because we keep talking about what we need and know and what people have. And that's the voice from staff about where they are in committee levels that can give us a real view of what they need. And that's the voice we need to hear, not when there's a need for a problem, but now, and it's a developing process. So we have a meeting sometime in June, or we can delay it until July so that we can have committee work done in the other committees to do that. Yes,
Technically, June is an off month.
that's what I figured. So we're July.
Unless we do want to have one, that is up to you all. But I did have a proposed schedule
Okay.
for the rest of the year, and
Okay.
I'll bring that under new business.
All right, thanks, Vivian. So those are there. Does anyone have other suggestions that we need to get from committees that we need to get? So I want us to have this because I want to send this out to committee chairs and get their feedback, and then move forward in July, which means we'd have some work to be done between now and then, and it would give us all a chance to sort of look at that and see what we need to get done. Okay. Commissioner Jester? No?
I don't have any questions, no.
Okay. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, fine. Commissioner West? Commissioner Leftwich, you sort of put us on a road which has bumpers.
I didn't even know I was going to do that.
I'm always looking for those things that help put us on a road to somewhere. And I think that's what we're looking at here. Some of them are going to be easier than others. That's what I will say. So we'll have to look at it that way. All right. So we're looking then at July to do that. I will get something out to committee chairs and to the chair of the commission between now and Thursday. Okay. And if there's anything that we need to add that we talked about today, then I think we can add it in. You can just send it back to me, and I'll add it in and then send it out. But I think I'll put something together and move it along pretty clearly in terms of where we need to go. Okay. So we're looking at a July meeting date where we'll discuss these in a lot of detail. If we need legal advice or support, I would hope that chairs would get those along with that before we met on whatever date we're meeting. Okay. Are there any concerns or any issues that we need to deal with around the process that we're getting ready to implement? Recognizing that there is an unknown, and that's whether we have an interim director or not, because I don't have that information. I have no information about that, other than it was in process as of earlier this week. So, at this point, I will move forward with a draft letter, which won't say much more than I've said here, and get that out to chairs, and have chairs then come back to me with questions if they have them. Okay, and I will then expand the letter based on those questions that might come back about what does A, B, or C mean. So, all right. Yes.
Can I say, in your letter, if you'd like, if a chair committee or any member of a committee is looking for a document or can't find it, or is, I'm happy to look for it, point them to the right place in the drive, different things like that. So I'm happy to help find things.
And I'm happy to help supply anything institutional that we may not have. I've got files for probably 6 years. So.
I did also see that the annual reports are in the file, and the last one was fiscal year 21.
Do you know where that fiscal year 21 report is? And do you all have it electronically?
More than likely, it's in SharePoint
And it's on the website as well.
and the website.
Okay,
Yes.
it's on the website, okay.
Yes.
So it's on the website, so I'm going to charge each of us as committee members with reading bylaws and that annual report so that we can move forward with respect to what we know about at least some process, some focus, and some direction, along with the share drive. And Commissioner Lefowitz will help you with that, and along with historical information, and Commissioner West will help with that. And we're going to start developing this and sort of moving along. So if you have things and you want to send them to me, I just like to pull them together, and I will pull it together and provide it to all the committee members as some electronic documents to sort of put things in a place that at least starts developing what we need to move forward. It might not be everything. It might just list where you can find it and those kind of things so that we have some place to look for ours. And we'll put that on the share drive, of course. All right. All right, so that takes next steps and timelines together. And then any other comments, any other questions there? Okay. Next, old business. We should have the minutes.
You'll have them before July, but we'll vote on them in July.
Okay, fine. And that's 3 sets of minutes that we'll
Yes.
have, which is really old business, which will give us a summary of what it was that we were looking for. So if there's some things we missed, but we'll do that
Yes.
at the July meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Any other old business? Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if this is old, but we don't have a sense of the internal audit timeline still? Great. We have, there were some public comments that we received that I forwarded about queries to organizations around the internal audit, and I think those were addressed, but this is also just part of like trust building, and I think as the processes get more clear, that will be helpful. But yeah.
Okay, very good. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure if this is old business or new business. Just looking at the formation of the Oversight Committee and the things that we're charged with, I was looking back at the first memo. It looks like HR, legal, finance. So I made a couple of notes. I think you just addressed, not sure where the interim is, so that, I guess it falls under new. The right report, where we are with that, MHRC, and the audit that Commissioner Lefowitz just touched on. So I just wanted to kind of review the scope of what we're doing and make sure we're covering the entire scope. As I reviewed the letter, a lot of funding is contingent upon this committee getting the work done. And I want to make sure we are hitting all the points they've asked us to in order to move forward with everything for the community, if that makes sense.
I think you're right, but I think, and the reason I'm breaking this down back into the 4 areas I mentioned, because that's where the program issues hit the road, and that's where process is, as opposed to this committee. I don't think we're developing process, but looking for those areas to develop process where it needs to exist, if it does not, or to enhance, because sometimes it exists and there needs to be tweaks. Again, that's going on in public arts, because you've done that. I've seen that happen at least once, if not twice. On some other areas, we have a lot of question marks, and that would be Thrive in terms of what we could do moving forward. On operations and budgets, I don't know anything. I really don't know what it looks like in terms of process. There's a lot of things floating, but I'm not sure what is in place, not in place, how things get done in payments, but it's there. And I think that's really what we want to get on the record and look at and move forward on. Because if this committee is developing it, then I think there's a misuse of us. I think as individuals on program committees, that's where we start the development. Commissioner West, do you understand what I'm looking for? Yes.
I think so.
Yeah. In other words, I don't want to develop anything for public arts. You all have developed it, but I want you all to educate the rest of the Board of Commissioners as to what is going on there. Under special initiatives, we are in a lot of question marks. That's where the Thrive program exists currently. On the communications side, we're hearing a lot, and we heard a lot at the last meeting about communications. How does that happen? How does that get to us? And what happens with staff work up to that? Some of that is not a lot of work, not a lot of knowledge, but at least kind of a review. I had a commissioner that says, I want to know what the watch says. I don't want to make the watch. In other words, what are we looking at in each of those program areas? What are we telling the public? When do they know it? How quickly do they know it? And how do we then process whatever it is we're doing, whether we're receiving grants, making decisions on grants, everything else? That's what we need to do. It is those areas that have had process in place, which may or may not change. I don't know. Sure. But I think that's what we need to clarify. And then community building and restorative practices is, after we do this, how do we repair what is a lot of concerns in the community about us as an organization? And that's the broader base. And how do we do that? What does that look like? That might be something we might want to recommend to the full body moving forward. And we can do that, or we can have the full board suggest some things and move that along. So, because we've got an executive committee.
I also think the care committee could be instrumental in the restorative piece, and I almost see it living there, given the expertise of many people on that committee with restorative practice, and they've been doing a lot of that thinking for a long time. My sense is that that's the work they want to be involved in.
That's right, and that's the committee that I have a sense of, but not knowledge of. So, and I think that's probably what we need to just get some information there. All right. So, I think I started out speaking to you on this issue, Commissioner. Is that sort of clear?
I think so. I think that I'm just kind of mulling it over in my head. A lot of the staff work with an executive director, the staff would be reporting to the ED would report back to us. I think we should be careful how much I don't think we're trying to oversee the staff, because that's not the role of the commissioner, the oversight. My main concern was making sure that as the oversight body, as this committee, that we are meeting all the terms that were put out in front of us in order to move the ball forward, and that there's nothing holding up finance or legal that we are not addressing in these meetings that would hold up the community.
Thank you. Next steps. New business. And that is meeting schedule.
Yes. So these are just proposed dates. Looking at our calendar and how things are already set. Each month I have 2 days, either the first Tuesday or the second Tuesday of the month. For July, it would be either the 2nd or the 9th. And August 6th or the 13th. October 1st or the 8th. November 5th or the 12th. And I can repeat that if you need me to.
Please.
Which month? All.
July 2 to 9, and then from there on.
August 6th or the 13th.
Okay.
October 1st or the 8th. November 5th or the 12th. Mm-hmm. And the time that we've set for the meeting is 12 to 2. I don't know if that's too long, or do we need to take an hour away? I don't know what you all want to do.
I would suggest we allocate the 2 hours and try to give people back time if we can, wherever we can, recognizing that some meetings may take a little bit longer than others. Okay. And when are the commission meetings as it relates to those dates?
Third week of the month.
The
It
third
is the third
Thursday
of each month.
Okay. Today is May the 7th. The first Tuesday is 6 weeks. Is that right? Give or take a day or two. As we move through, we have some things that should be occurring that should be able to assist us in terms of staffing, with respect to interim, we hope, and some other things that gets things moving. So we should be able to do some of that. And then we have things on drives that we need to look at and sort of summarize. Can we do that meeting, the first meeting in July is the first Tuesday? It gives us then some time to sort of look at what other things we might be needing to do so we can make an appropriate report at the commission meeting, as opposed to it being too close and too many things. And that might give us time to do that so that we can have a good report to the next, and it's the first of the year, first of the fiscal year. So is that July the 2nd?
Are you asking about availability right now?
Yes.
My deep desire is that I will be in Canada on July 2.
Oh, that sounds like a good thing. Can you take us to Canada for the meeting?
I can probably zoom in if we have that capability.
No, unfortunately, we don't.
Yeah. Okay, so July 2nd, that's 2 days before the 4th of July, too.
It
So,
is.
we're going to have to go out then, maybe.
To the 9th. That's the next Tuesday.
Deep desire is I'll be in Canada.
Oh, still.
So you're going to be in Canada. I got that.
Okay.
I got that. So do the rest of us want to meet on the 2nd? I'm not sure. It's before holidays.
I'll be back by the 16th.
No, that's too close to the next commission meeting. I'm trying for us to at least do some things, and maybe what we might need to do is delay maybe some of the issues that your committee might need and the things you're looking at, or no?
I'm happy to do the work that we talked about and then get that work to somebody to relay on my behalf before a meeting that I might not be able to be at.
Okay, that'll be great. Then why don't we try the 2nd, so you can do it before you go to Canada? And then get back to us. So that gets us moving. Some things I think are, like I said, are more developed than others. Are more developed than others, so that we can, in fact, look at that and sort of see where we need to go, and then discern again some additional timelines and things we need to work on over the summer months. Okay. And then for ongoing meetings for August and September, do we want that first Tuesday, or do we want some
August and October. And
August
November.
and October, excuse me.
August 6th would work well for me personally. I think the following week we'll be taking my daughter to college.
Okay, got it.
August 6th is fine for me.
Oh, wonderful. And then October is the
First
8th.
or the 8th.
Or the first?
First or the 8th.
First or the 8th. The first is a Tuesday before Labor Day. The 8th is the day after Labor Day. Huh?
October, not September.
I'm looking at. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna make it a holiday anyway. The 14th is a holiday, I assume. Is that right or no? Columbus or no?
I don't have that on my calendar.
Then some. Yes, Columbus Day. Some federal agencies, some state agencies and some city agencies move that to Thanksgiving week.
Let me see. I don't know if we're closed.
I'm just asking. Do we want to do the first then?
Either one of those is fine with me in October.
First? The first?
I'm free as a bird.
Okay, good deal. Then let's do the first in October. So we have a schedule, Vivian, that you can send out for us.
In November, can we get November's date?
November
5th or 12th?
I will not be available on the 12th. The 5th is best for me in November.
The 5th is that first Tuesday, so we want to do the 5th? All right. So we're set through November.
Yes.
Hopefully we do not have to call a meeting in October unless it's absolutely necessary for some reason. But that is
in June or September.
in June or September. Those are options, but right
Yes.
now the permanent schedule is set.
Yes, and that's for the rest of the year.
All right.
And I will send out those invitations today.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions or issues relative to today's meeting?
Let's see. I've got a couple of things I think that fall under new business.
All right.
One would be tonight's council meeting.
Is it tonight or tomorrow?
Tonight's council meeting.
There's a council meeting tomorrow, committee meeting?
Committee meeting for councils tomorrow night. Tonight, there is a council meeting.
Okay.
There are, and I learned this from the MHRC meeting yesterday, and that is the first I'd heard of it. And so I don't know if other commissions know or not, or commissioners know or not.
No, share
there
it
are
with
two
us.
bills up for first reading tonight, one for third. The third is specifically, it's for, I think, all commissions for financial disclosure. Tessa, can you speak to, do you know any of this? Because I only learned it from y'all's meeting. And so that's all I really know. And I know that those bills are on first reading. I saw on social media that artists in the community will be attending, and I just didn't know until last night that any of those were being put forth tonight. So I just wanted to find out, since we're in this forum, if we could talk about it. That was one thing. Second is tomorrow night's meeting at 5:30 with Chair Love will be attending, and I know Chair Lefkowitz, you're attending as well, I think. I'm going to try, if I have caregiving, I'm not sure if I do or not. So that was a second piece. You addressed the interim situation that we do not have. I mean, as far as I know, as of yesterday, there is still no communication on the interim. So those, I think, were the main three things. Oh, also, fiscal year 25, we discussed the budget. And maybe this is more Commissioner Jester, any updates on, and it kind of ties back to me just thinking about what we're doing in this committee, moving forward with fiscal year 25 grants and those applications. That's still at a standstill, I assume.
Yeah, I don't like the word standstill, but we have temporarily postponed the next grants meeting because I feel like a lot of the decisions that we need to make in the grants meeting need to have an interim executive director as part of the process. And so we started those conversations in the last grants meeting. Expect to continue those conversations, but just want to make sure that we'll probably end up capitalizing quite a bit of time in the first week of the new interim executive director's time, talking about how we move this forward as quickly as possible. We have gotten a fair amount of response back from artists and organizations in the community about what the deleterious effects of potentially moving back the timeline might look like. And so we'll take that into consideration as well. But we are temporarily paused. I like that better than standstill.
Thank you. I didn't mean so much on the committee end, more the finance end, because I think looking back, if we need to submit the criteria through council, the annual report needs to be submitted, and this all seems for fiscal year 25. I just wanted to know that we're meeting all the criteria that have been asked of us in order to open up that pool.
Yeah, and I want to be careful not to misspeak or mischaracterize things I've read, but part of the bills that are coming before council for first reading tonight have to do with that to some degree. So, yeah.
Do those bills have timelines in them?
They're just on first reading, and so first reading is usually more of a parliamentary procedure. Second reading is where we can show up and make comment if we feel necessary, and third reading would be where they passed. So the timeline is just Metro Council's meeting schedule.
It's usually every other week that they'll do it.
Yeah.
So we've got to plan that into the whole thing. It's every other week, and then it pushes things back. And I was just sort of surprised that none of us, I mean, I didn't know if anyone else had been reached out to, but I haven't heard from anyone on it until I saw it.
No, I hadn't been reached out to. I saw it and went out and read the bills. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so what are the two bills specifically? What's the general information? Thank you.
The two bills are, the first bill is Control F, RS 2024-402. No, that's wrong. The first one is BL 2024-343, an ordinance to amend Chapter 2.112 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws regarding the membership of the Metropolitan Arts Commission and the process for approving the criteria for awarding funds. So that was to your point. And then the second one is BL 2024-302, an ordinance to amend Section 2.12-130 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws to amend the purpose of the Metropolitan Metropolitan Nashville Arts Commission. Great.
Who are the authors on this?
Okay. The authors of the second one are Commissioner Stiles, Commissioner Welsh, Commissioner Gadd, Commissioner Vo, Commissioner Ewing, Commissioner Benedict, Cupin, Berkeley Allen. I can send out these if you'd like.
If you could, that might be helpful too.
I'll send it to the entire commission.
That'll work. Thank you. Anything else on new business?
For the Metro Arts budget presentation to council, date of that and who is actually doing that. Normally it would be the ED.
I am not sure, and I don't know that it's been decided. The chair will be at tomorrow's committee meeting. I'm not sure if she's at tonight's meeting or if she's watching it to see what happens. That's probably what I will do. And what that looks like moving forward for us as a committee. And my sense is probably whoever goes needs to go with staff and or finance, because it's kind of where does the information reside on what's been developed. And
With finance taking over the books, that was the question, is that would finance be going, it is coming up soon.
I'm not sure. And when, did you know a date? Did you have a date? Okay. We'll figure that out because it's sometime coming up within the next 3 weeks is what I think. Somewhere, because I had it in earlier notes. I don't have it here, but it was in earlier notes, so we can look at that and see.
It's May 23rd.
May 23rd?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send that out as well in my.
Okay. And these are all of the things that, while we are looking at a timeline, affects what we do on an ongoing basis and redirects and refocuses our energy and our efforts on things. And so sometimes we need to just sort of stay on track and realize there might be another track we have to run simultaneously. We'll figure out how we do that later. Okay.
My last two questions were HR. Is there any, are we doing anything with the Wright report and where that stands? And then I see Tyler is here. Do you have anything for MHRC or anything at all that we need to talk about today?
I'm happy to provide a brief update. It's not much more than what you probably already know. And there was an update yesterday at the MHRC meeting as well from council for MHRC regarding where we are in the process. And I think, as you know, the planning for and efforts toward getting to a conciliation process are underway. We've had 2 meetings of council amongst ourselves to sort of plan for this process. The, of course, sort of first piece is, and this was alluded to earlier in the meeting, I think by Commissioner Lefkowitz, the payments to artists. And obviously that is mostly being sort of marshaled by Metro Legal with, and they are involving MHRC increasingly in that process and in getting those funds out to artists. And then secondly, there have been conversations, for instance, around the recommendations in the MHRC report, and you all are already having those conversations. And one of those, of course, has to do with taking the criteria for grant funding to Metro Council as is required under the enabling ordinance. That's actually one of the issues before the council on first reading tonight. So these are things that are already sort of before you and that are topics of conversation and conciliation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes. Was there another question, or is that it?
Yeah, which is about the Wright report and where we are with that.
Okay.
HR.
I'm not sure we're anywhere with it. I think it's on hold. and this just goes back to the last commission meeting. I've not heard anything different from that. And at some point, there's always this issue of what do we get from all the parties so we can make an informed decision, whatever that is. And we don't have that. So,
With the letter that was provided in last week's commission meeting from Attorney Holland on behalf of Director Singh, I wasn't sure if that was serving as Director Singh's response or not. I guess that is more of a commission question.
I think it is, because I looked at that. I'm not sure if that's a response either. And at some point we were told that he couldn't provide a response. So that's his attorney. Is that a full response or partial? And the attorney did not do that. We can ask for clarification on that at some point. See where we go. And then we also have FMLA, which is still moving as well. So.
That's over the 15th, right? If
Okay. Which is the day before our meeting, so.
pending medical.
Yes. All right. Is there any other new business that we need to discuss, or any other questions or issues that need to be raised at this time? If not, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn.
All right, we're adjourned until the first Tuesday in July.
I'll bring the fireworks.
Sounds good.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.